Hi, welcome back to my channel. Again, I just want to quickly brief. This camera is not the permanent plan. I'm actually planning to get my new phone on Friday, and I picked out a proper camera, like a proper. This camera actually isn't quite as bad as I thought it was. Again, apologies for the background. The lighting is not great in here and everything else, but I feel I'm visible enough, so that's good. Today I'm going to do a quick chat on grief. I'm going to just go straight into it because this I actually haven't done any notes on, and I've done a couple of plans for a couple of other videos, but this is something that's really quite close to my life at the moment, because if I haven't mentioned on my channel before, I wasn't planning to actually expose this, but I'd like to share for my own self as well that sounds basically it sounds like a small thing and that you wouldn't realise it, but I think from a perspective of inner knowing, this affected me as a child. So my mum had I had a sister, but it was a stillborn, and you might think, oh well, I mean, I don't think anyone with any logical sense would be like, oh well, why does that bother you? Because obviously that's going to be quite an insensitive thing to say, but I don't think I realised or acknowledged any time before about a year ago that could have affected me, but I do think that as a young child, instinctually you kind of can tell if there's a sibling near you, if you like, I don't know, and I think on a spiritual sense, I thought, I mean, not even spiritual, just as as I grow older, and I'm 23 now, I literally was just oh well, that literally could have been something that really affects my life, in terms of trauma at a young age, and something that I never got a chance to really speak about, because what can you do? I must have been to be fair, I thought I was 2, I must have been younger than that, I was 1 year old, something like that. But it's just something that I've never really spoken about with my family, apart from from my mum's grief perspective, but even from seeing your mother grieving over her own child, that's got affected me on a really deep level, to the point where I didn't really ever understand that. And the thing is about trauma, as I said in the past, it's something that traps itself inside your body, and sometimes if you don't acknowledge it, it will just stay there. I heard a quote recently that the body and everything about your body and your cells are so smart, and it's so clever, and it's preserved perfectly all the trauma you've ever experienced inside your body, well, until you release it, obviously. But so it's something that I've been kind of trying to deal with recently, and I heard that it's really helpful to. It's been over a year or two since lockdown and stuff. I've really started thinking about it a little bit more. It's been in my mind and stuff, and I've researched things about it, and I've heard that writing letters to them to try and just sort of voice your feelings, or even if you I'm one of those people, and I will say, and I've heard some people say this, not everyone, I can't speak for everyone, but sorry, my hamster's making so much noise. I've heard that some people find it helpful. I feel like only recently have I let her go from my inner self, because it felt for a while that I was kind of clinging on to her, and I didn't even realise I was doing it. And this is really deep for me, because it's something that I never processed or realised I was doing until recently, where I was kind of acknowledging, well, oh yeah, I never really processed that, and it's just something that I've been carrying around for my entire life, and I only really allowed myself to process it recently, and sort of allow myself, I think now I've come to the point where I fully accepted that that was a thing, and that I carried around a lot of stress and trauma in my body for a long time, a lot of hurt, loss, because it does affect you on a psychological level as well, especially if you haven't processed it. It really damaged my, looking back, sense of being, and kind of wounded me quite extremely deeply, and it wasn't something that I really paid any attention to or was consciously thinking about. And I'm literally wringing my hands talking about it. It's quite it's quite a topic close to my heart. And yeah, I've written a few letters and stuff like that, just trying to speak to her and stuff, because I'm one of those people where I do believe that now I've released her from myself, that I feel I was carrying around that pain and grief and loss and all that stuff, and I feel like I've released her, if you like. I feel like I can still write letters and stuff and feel like, you know, in heaven or wherever she might be listening or watching, and, you know, and looking down on me, sort of thing. So yeah, like I've also lost other family members, but I feel like if it's like, it's different if you're consciously aware of it and your parents talk you through it, oh, your granddad's died, blah blah blah. I'm not saying that's any easier to deal with, loss is loss, but it's kind of just processing all that pain and stuff, and just kind of eventually, and just giving it a lot of time and realising it will take time, and not to traumatise yourself to try and over process it, because at the end of the day your body again is so smart, it'll always, and if you want to look at it from God's timing, how I do as well, you're always going to process stuff at the time you're supposed to. So yeah, there's a lot of other videos out on grief if it's something you're struggling with, but yeah, it's something that I've thought about recently. And yeah, I will say as well, I've heard of another death that happened recently as well, which has really upset me, but has also forced me to fully grieve for, you know, my family loss a while ago, and a couple of other griefs I've had. And grief is such a funny thing as well, because you can grieve a lot of things, but I'm just going to focus this on, you know, people, from a human being perspective. So yeah, thanks for listening. Yeah, bye.